Hi everyone, welcome back to Inside the Ropes. With me, I've got a man that you can watch every Wednesday at 10 PM on Free Sports, and later this month, or I think it's only about a week away now because we're flying through the days already, the 16th of January, Hard to Kill on Premier Sports and also on Fight TV. I'm only going to give him a short introduction. If I listed off all his accolades, I would not have time for one question, never mind a few. Former Impact World Champion, as all will say, a Grand Slam champion at that. It's the world-class maniac, Eric Young. How's it going today, Eric?
Yeah, it's good, man. It's really good. It's a very cool time to be in the wrestling industry and being a fan of wrestling. And I don't know, it's a weird time, but it's a really cool time. We're living history in so many ways, man. It's cool to be back on over in the UK. I know there was a bit of a hiatus there for us, and that's exciting for us. And hopefully we can get over there when the world opens up to do some live shows. And yeah, everything is cool except for this global pandemic that we're all dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. It's the one thing that's getting in the way of everything being great in wrestling, annoyingly. But everyone's got to deal with it, so I guess we just need to live with it. But you mentioned how exciting it is to be a wrestling fan right now. I've got one really important question I need to ask before that I'm sure everyone's dying to know. Did you get your heating fixed?
I did. Yeah, the final kind of bow on 2020, and I had a couple over. Me and my wife had a couple over that we're really good friends with, and we woke up New Year's Eve morning and had no heat in our downstairs. Luckily, there's a heating unit upstairs, so we weren't worried about going to sleep and stuff like that. But it was freezing. It was one of the coldest days in Nashville, in the city that this year, and it was absolutely freezing downstairs. But we got it all worked out. I had to go old school with the stove open a little bit in the kitchen, and we just huddled up downstairs and had a good time on New Year's, and hopefully put this whole year in the rearview mirror, man. But yeah, we got the heat back. A gift from 2020 at the end of the year. I had to replace my heating unit, but all was well.
Yeah, the one time of year you don't want it to happen. To say a cliche though, the wrestling business is hotter than ever, so I guess we can do a really bad transition there. The one thing that I need to ask about, you mentioned that being the end part of 2020. The end part of 2020 for a lot of people was seeing a little friendship brewing between Impact and AEW. Of course, really exciting for every wrestling fan, I think. I need to ask, as an Impact talent, how exciting is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's cool, and I've said this in interviews before, is wrestling in front of no people, it's awful. Like, it's no fun at all. Like, the crowd itself is a huge part of the audience, but I'm an experiential person, and I'm, a member of a small amount of pro wrestlers that wrestled in front of nobody and managed to, be working for a company that is somehow thriving during this time. And I'm living history, and now we're doing it again. This is, unprecedented. This has never happened as far as I can remember, where an active member of another roster that works for another company that's on a different television station and completely owned by different people is appearing and promoting his appearances on another show. They're on another television channel that works for another company. So it's, we're living history. And I mean, obviously, Kenny is bell to bell, might be the most talented guy in the world right now. If he's not, in the top three, he's definitely in the top five. The excitement of having him show up on the show is everywhere. As you're a wrestling fan. I'm a wrestling fan. I've always been a wrestling fan. And, it's cool, man. It's uncharted waters. We're living history. And the thought of him appearing and other guys perhaps coming across and us going over there, and all the fantasy booking people are losing their minds, and so are we. I mean, it's exciting for me, even though I've been in Impact close to a year now. There's so many guys on the roster that I want to and have yet to work with, and vice versa at AEW. There's a long list of guys that I would love to get in the ring with, and Kenny being near the top of the list. And unfortunately, we lost Brody, a very close friend of mine, and I would have loved to share a ring with him again. We've worked several times over the years, and the list goes on and on of possible things that could happen. Nobody knows at this point what's going to happen, how long this relationship will last. it is wrestling and everything changes day to day. But man, it's so exciting to be in a locker room where we have a working relationship with another company. It's how it should be. And unfortunately it's not, with money, ego, politics, things like that ruin things like this. And that doesn't seem to be getting in the way. And that's so exciting, man. It's such a cool, I'm not directly involved, but I'm right on the fringe of being involved and part of a company that is involved in this. It's exciting to be part of that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's really exciting for me, and wrestling journalists always want to know everything. I'm quite happy not knowing with this. I really just want to see where it goes. But the one thing that, it kind of obviously wasn't the first thing in my mind, but when we seen Kenny Omega coming to Impact and then setting up the match with Rich Swann, which is a tag team match, obviously, but those two are going to share the ring. One of the first things I thought was, oh, what about the people that have held the World Championship beforehand? Having held the World Championship so recently, is there a little bit of frustration that you're not the guy that's going to be the first one to share the ring with Kenny Omega and Impact?
Yeah, no, there's no frustration there. Like, I've always approached wrestling as I'm an employee, and I think I've shown in my track record, and anybody that's worked with me knows that whatever the company deems is in the best interest of the company, that's what I'm going to do. I'm never going to push back on that. I'm going to suggest things, and I'm going to work on what they've given me to best of my ability and make it the best it can be. And definitely Impact is, it is very singular in my opinion. I've worked for a lot of different companies under a lot of different regimes, and this one is the best company I've ever worked for. And how it's put together currently, it's very collaborative. In the end, they have final say, and Scott and the creative team and Access, they just get to decide what goes on. Would I have liked to still been world champion? I mean, absolutely. Nobody wants to lose that responsibility or that prestigious award or position. But I think it was right for what happened with me and Rich. And I think we, told a great story and had a really good match that people are going to talk about and remember for a long time. Would I like to share a ring with Kenny Omega? Yes. We've crossed paths, both being Canadians, and I can remember hearing about him, right when I was first kind of leaving to go to Impact in 2004. I can remember guys working with him in the Indies and him coming up to Ontario some, but we never crossed paths there. And I don't think we've ever actually met in person, but obviously we know each other. We know what each other has done. And that is something that, I look forward to at least having the possibility of sharing a moment with him and a whole bunch of other guys that are over there as well.
Yeah, I really hope it happens. But the one thing is, we mentioned right now, Impact, there's a lot going on. I think a lot of people do focus on that one thing. But, I mean, the storyline that you're in right now, Joe Doring, a man not a lot of people know about, that's got a really interesting story. And, of course, Cody Deaner, that I think a lot of people will be familiar with, but we've not quite seen everything he has to offer yet. How did that come about, and how much are you enjoying working with those guys?
Yeah, I mean, people that don't know Joe, they're going to find out what he's about really quick. You know what I mean? It's a guy that I've known for years and years, and I'm not going to claim that me and him have been close or whatever, but, I ran into him, during his first couple of weeks of training when he was with Scott, and I was working for Scott a lot at Border City, and wrestling is a small world. And, obviously he was very close to getting a TNA contract at the time, and they just felt they didn't have a space for him. And he went over to All Japan, and the rest is kind of history. He became a massive star over there, and, was a triple crown champion. And, it was a top build, top draw American talent living over there and touring over there for years and years. That they don't hand that out to just anybody. That's a very prestigious thing. And they, often if there's, one American on the roster and he's kind of getting a thing, they often don't have more than a few there. And Joe was a guy that was able to stick and become a very big name in Japan and in the wrestling world. If you're a diehard fan, you've definitely heard of him. You may not have seen him if you're not a person that follows Japanese wrestling like some people do, but I mean, you're going to find out what he's all about. He's a great guy, a cool guy to work with, obviously very talented, and it's a cool aspect for the group. And Cody is, part of what makes this cool is the story is real. You know what I mean? Like, me and him have known each other for over 20 years. He's been one of my best friends for over 20 years. I was helping run a school in Niagara Falls. I would do a class a week down there, and he was one of the students and was one of the best students. And I mean, in my opinion, for what it's worth, and for me, it's worth a lot, this is one of, the hidden gems in pro wrestling. This guy can do everything. He is an unbelievably talented guy and has never really been given a fair shake. And I think our stories that way mirror who I was years ago, doing the comedy wrestling, which, I wouldn't change for anything. I love doing it. But Cody was in the same boat, and he was looking for something different. And we approached the writers and creative team about, doing something with this group. And they, Cody went all in, and, I'm excited for people to see, there's some really cool stuff that happens tonight, or on Impact this week. And I can't wait to really get going. It's literally just starting. The buzz from the videos, Eric Tompkins and Dave Zahadi, the production guys here at Impact, are absolutely murdering it, like just killing it, man. Like, I mean, I think probably the best production in the business right now, pro wrestling wise, and doing that cinematic stuff is always interesting and fun and puts it in a different light. And I think introducing the group that way is really cool and singular. And the fact that Kenny's showing up is we've got so many eyes on the show right now, which is great. Great for us, great for Impact, great for wrestling. So I'm excited to get going forward and having people find out who Joe is and finding out what Cody is capable of, because the truth is, I mean, what you've seen him do is scratching the surface of what this guy can do.
Yeah, most definitely. It's something that even the little teaser videos I've seen, I'm like, I can't wait to see where this goes. One thing that you brought up earlier that I think, I need to mention, I think every wrestling interview is probably going to have a question about this man, for the next while anyway. And it was the wrestling world suffering a really sad loss with, Luke Harper, Brody Lee, John Huber, whatever you want to call him sadly losing his life. Of course, you guys, quite a bit in common in terms of people thinking you were underutilised at certain points, and obviously both being huge hockey fans. Do you have any memories of Luke Harper, Brody Lee, John Huber?
Yeah, I mean, was really like one of my really good friends in wrestling. A guy that I got booked to work in Indy against up in Buffalo when he was kind of first starting. I was, obviously in TNA and flew up to do this Indy, and I think it was me and him in the main event, and they gave us like 35 minutes, and he was already making a pretty big name for himself and was kind of wrestling all over the Northeast. And I think he had started doing some stuff with ROH just at the time and was doing very well for himself. And we clicked immediately. We had, probably one of my top 10 favorite matches of all time. And when we were both working in the WWE, he gave me, to me, one of the biggest compliments of all time. And it's coming from him, a guy that's so talented and so successful in his own right. He said, that match, I can't remember what year it was, but I'm going to say it's probably around 2000, in between 2008, 2011, somewhere in there. And he said that match was an aha moment for him, where he said, I was telling him stuff and we kind of structured the match around certain things, and it was very story first. And he was the world champion, their world champion at the time. And I was a babyface coming in and challenging for it. And he said that match changed how he viewed wrestling, and for the better. And that's, for me, like I've said this before, is nothing, is more important than people that I share a ring with and peers of mine saying stuff like that. That's, the highest compliment you could get is somebody that you respect and admire is saying, we had this match and it was a huge part of his wrestling journey. And it was like this kind of light bulb went on when we structured things a certain way. And I was telling him things and he said, I didn't believe it would work. And then it did. And, it changed how he wrestled. It changed how he viewed wrestling. And that's such a cool thing to share with somebody. just, you've seen it on social media, like universally loved by every single person that knew him or came in contact with him. It's, a tragedy, absolute tragedy. Family first guy. Thoughts with his family, his wife and his sons. And obviously it's awful, but it's such a cool legacy to leave a guy. There's very few people in the world that can say that they have no enemies. And I think I'm pretty close to that. I don't think I'm on his level, but literally universally loved by everywhere he went. A guy that should have been more utilized than he was. And, I think was going to be getting that chance in AEW, and it's heartbreaking, man. It's, it still doesn't seem like it's real, and it's an awful thing to happen, but it's the legacy that he leaves behind is something that his wife can be proud of, and his sons will be proud of their whole life, because he is, as far as human beings go, is one of the best guys I've ever met anywhere in any walk of life.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people say you're 41 isn't the wage at all, but you can tell it was a life well lived by the amount of support that came out. One other person that I'm going to ask you about before we go back over to a couple of Impact questions. I can't believe that I've interviewed Eric Young, I think 4 times now, and I've never asked about a partnership you had with someone from my home city in Nikki Cross. What are your thoughts on Nikki Cross?
She's the best. I'm sure you've talked to her or met her. In wrestling is a small world, is just a light. An absolute beautiful light. Just so fun to be around, and just eternally positive. And besides all the stuff of she's this great human being, and she's funny, and she's nuts, and just awesome to be around, is she's crazy talented. And I don't think even Nikki knows how good she is. And I think the world is kind of starting to find out about it. But, there is literally no limit to what she can do and what she can become. And I'm hoping that they give her a real run, because she is somebody that the wrestling world will enjoy, as it has enjoyed already. But I don't think she even knows how good she is. She's so talented, was such a huge part of Sanity, and was so happy to share tons of great memories with her, and share a ring with her, and share a spotlight with her. So yeah, she's awesome, man. And besides being uber talented, is just a great person. So everything that happens to her, she deserves.
Yeah, definitely. And Impact recently brought back the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you about your run with those titles. I know it's one of the many you've held. But I need to ask about another championship that I remembered when I was sitting the other day. I'm going, I forgot that was a thing. The World Beer Drinking Championship. Do you have any memories of that title? Is it something that's easy to have memories of, since there was a lot of beer consumed? And do you think we might see it return, since we've got the Good Brothers on the roster now?
Yeah, well, I'm way out of practice now, and I don't think I would even be in the running for champion. But yeah, it was a very cool time. I love. Everyone's like, man, was it weird? As a guy that broke into wrestling, and I got hired at TNA because I was a good wrestler. I had never done comedy wrestling. I had never been a funny character. I had never done that ever in my life before getting there. And they asked me if I wanted to do it, and I jumped at the opportunity. And, the rest is kind of history. And working with James, doing the beer drinking championship, I think made for some pretty entertaining television. Drinking beer is then, and it still is, a part of my life. And I was way better at it then than I am now. I don't bounce back like I used to. So I have to watch the consumption, but yeah, I loved it, man. I think people dug it. It made us seem, more personal. It makes us seem like regular people, which we all are. Some guys will pretend like they're not, but we are. I wouldn't put my beer drinking championship abilities up against either of the Good Brothers. They're too well seasoned and practiced for that. So, but yeah, I don't imagine it comes back. I think it was more of a one-off thing, and just kind of something that just through promos and me and Storm talking about it, just kind of took on a life of its own and became this thing. And we had, I think, a beer drinking contest back and forth on a pay-per-view, and I'm spilling it all over myself, and it was wild. Very fond memories of it. It was really cool to get paid to drink beer at work for 4 months.
I can definitely imagine that would be a nice little benefit. So yeah, one of the best things for me, watching you this year, of course, your return and then the World Championship. But there was a little other thing that I loved personally, and it was what we spoke about earlier, the free sports, the Premier Sports deal. Watching a sports channel in the UK and seeing a trailer with Eric Young in it, it was like something I'm like, man, this is something that I can imagine is the norm in America, but it's just not in the UK. How cool is it knowing that you're just on TVs in the UK and I guess a load of other countries? Because that's the one thing everyone says, AEW, the partnership, Impact will benefit more. Well, the amount of TVs Impact is on around the world, how cool is it to just know you've got that far reach?
Yeah, it's cool. Pro wrestling is a worldwide product. And being relevant in the UK and in other countries. I know the Pluto platform allows us to be in South America and other places like that. Pro wrestling is all over the place. We have an international roster, and I feel we should be on internationally. And being on again in the UK is some of my fondest memories with TNA and even with the WWE is touring that part of the world. I love that part of the world, and I've got kind of a weird plan, and maybe in a couple years that I'll be living over there kind of full time. I don't want to reveal that. There's lots of stuff in the works, but it's one of my favorite parts of the world, and I love the culture and love the cities and the fact that you can travel and all this stuff. And being on a legitimate sports channel, it's huge. It's huge for Impact and huge for all of us. And the hope is that when the world opens up, like I said earlier, is getting back over there and doing a tour and maybe doing some live Impact tapings over there, which, the UK wrestling scene is unbelievable, and the crowds are never let you down, man. It's such a cool thing to experience. And it's cool that pro wrestling is kind of this universal language, it kind of works in all other places, and you can be in Japan and everyone knows who you are and they're following you around, and same in the UK. So the deal that they got there, that Access was able to do and Impact was able to move back over into that market and be on, a prime channel is huge. It's huge. And it's a cool thing to think about what can come of it in the future.
Yeah, most definitely. And I want to ask you one last question, a very quick one. You mentioned earlier the AEW dream matches. Have you got anyone in your eye on in particular?
I think me and Moxley there's a lot of similarities there. Is a guy that I crossed paths with a little bit at the WWE, and we seem to get along pretty well. A guy that I respect completely for what he did and who he is and how he carries himself. So that's I think a thing I would love. I did share the ring a little bit with Miro, a really good buddy of mine, a guy that I think is one of the most talented guys in the world. And I'm not, blowing smoke. I believe that. And, him being released blew my mind. And now him signing with AEW is awesome for him, awesome for wrestling fans, because I feel you're going to get, a real version of who he is. And that's a guy that I would love. There's, people I've, shared the ring with before, Kazarian, Kaz, Young Bucks, we've worked each other a ton when they were in TNA, tag matches and singles matches and X Division stuff. I mean, how long do you have? The list goes on. And it's the same with Impact. It's like, guys like Ace Austin and Chris Bay and like guys that, they're just scratching the surface. And the thought of me being able to kind of, work with them and them make me better and me make them better. It's so exciting, man. It's such a cool time to be in the position that I'm in. And, everything happens for a reason. I've got fate tattooed on my right underarm, and it's a thing that I believe in, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I don't know if I've ever been this excited in my life about my career and where I'm at and possibilities. And it's so cool. And I guess I'm not old and I'm not nowhere near done, but it's such a cool thing at my, advanced age to be in a position that I'm in. It's not lost on me that there's a massive opportunity here, and everything I get, I'm just going to work to knock out of the park and make people realize that Impact is one of the best wrestling products right now in the entire world.
Most definitely. 2021 looks like it's going to be a really exciting year for wrestling. Can't wait to see how it goes. Thanks so much, Eric. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Yeah, thank you, Gary, man. Awesome. Always, always a pleasure.